So I think at this point, it's fair to say that Sean Strickland is not being given opportunities that he would be given if he was literally anyone else in the UFC. He seems to obviously be aware of it, which is why he's threatening to leave the UFC and go box if he doesn't get a title shot. Empty threat, but nonetheless, he is aware that he's getting passed over. So we're going to talk about his threat and then why he's getting passed over. I think the things that he's been saying online, the things he says into press conference microphones are sabotaging his career. I think the UFC is blocking him from becoming the champion because he is so popular. There is no other reason that you could come up with why he would be completely out of the title picture given the circumstances. He beat the longtime champion in Izzy handily. And I mean, like, whipped Izzy badly. He loses a razor-thin decision to Dricus. And I'm going to talk about that again, too, because I actually had a realization about the judging in that fight. Now, I've said openly, I think Sean won the fight, but nonetheless, I saw Sean Strickland recently as he was talking about the fight, say that he was in a liberal country, and I hadn't given a lot of credence to him getting hosed because of his political leanings, but I want to actually revisit that. I want to revisit that because I had been looking at it, in my opinion, incorrectly. So I want to talk about that. Also, we're going to go through this thing where he went back and forth with Dave Portnoy because I have to critique him on these back and forths that he has on Twitter because they just I don't understand why he does this, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. And then we got to talk about this pistol whip thing. Colby's saying that he's getting investigated for pistol whipping a guy in the street. And I think that is also contributing to him not getting opportunities in the UFC. I don't think that he needs to do this. Like, there is a level of authenticity that is the reason he's popular. And I think that he's playing it up to a point that's actually hurting him. That's totally unnecessary. Like, completely unnecessary. Does not need to take it this far. And he would do much better in terms of being given opportunities in the UFC. I mean, like, you can't be the champion if they don't give you title fights. And if they're not giving you title fights because you're doing XYZ, just stop doing XYZ. But as you guys know, I go back and forth. I get in the same video, I can give two completely diametrically opposed opinions, but they're based on different criteria. Because you want to know why I decided I want to do a Sean Strickland video today? Is because of this. Because the first thing that I saw this morning is this, that Joe Biden declares Easter Sunday the transgender day of visibility. And the first thing I thought of is I was like, man, I can't wait to see Sean Strickland talk about this.
The world is not saying, you know what? You're right. Fucking chicks have dicks. The world's not saying that. The world's saying, no, there are two genders.
So, like, as a fan, I love that he talks about this stuff. I love it. But I have two contradictory viewpoints, which is, one, I love his authenticity. I want to know exactly what he actually thinks. And then the other side, I consider myself a professional who thinks about outcomes, and I'm willing to play inside the lines of the paradigm that I am put inside of. And so I'm like, okay, dude, just like, but yeah, I want to hear him go completely crazy about that transgender day of visibility. It's the most ludicrous thing of all time. It's absurd, absolutely absurd, especially given that it's in the middle of a presidential campaign. And how well is the trans thing playing with the public? Bud Light, what happened? You know, Planet Fitness, what happened? You're literally in the middle of the hardest backlash to anything ever. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. So the transgender day of visibility is on Easter? Awesome. Let's go ahead and put out a big press release about it. And then let's put a bunch of misleading stats in our press release. You're like, what are you doing? You already are losing by, you know, I mean, depending on how they count the votes, but you are losing. And now you're like, let's just do the same strategy that is blown up in the faces of these other, it just doesn't even make any sense to me. Except it does, and I'll tell you exactly why they did it. So we'll talk about all of that stuff, and then if we have time, I want to talk about James Krause, because James Krause put out a statement that he's in $5 million worth of debt, and everybody seems to be reporting on that. However, it's like everyone's just taking that first part. He says a bunch of other stuff that gives context to the $5 million in debt, and no one's reporting on that. So, you know, I did enough kind of I don't know, negative coverage of James Krause when he was in the, you know, in the jackpot with the gambling. So I'll at least, I'll help him out here because it's like, yeah, why would he announce that? There's a reason that he announced that and people aren't reporting that. So we're going to talk about that. So real quick before we start though, everybody always asks me, how does your brain work so quickly? The answer is I drink Gabrielle's products. Gabrielle has a nootropic line that is so strong with no crash. I cannot exaggerate how amazing that stuff is. For me, it's like the limitless drug. If you see me when I make a mistake, I catch myself really quick. I go like, what? If I do that, that means that I drank the drink, because it literally speeds my brain up to where I'm catching things instantly. Now, very important, start with a half a scoop. Very important. I'm telling you right now, it is very strong. Do not underestimate it. If you take a full scoop and just go, whatever, it can be too much, okay? But if you go half, you're gonna be like, whoo, Nelly. Daddy's ready to film, or the ladies are like, mommy's ready to film and then clean the floors and then go have sex with my husband. Now, I'm certainly no expert in this stuff. All I do is just put it in my mouth and then feel how it goes. But this is a list of all of the different ingredients that are in this drink. I personally like the watermelon. So I'll leave a link to the watermelon drink, which has all of this stuff in it. And, yeah, give it a run. And then you could be walking around your house sounding like Jesse on fire. Let's talk some Sean Strickland. All right, so Sean Strickland threatens to leave the UFC if he doesn't get the next title shot. Let's see what he said, and then we'll discuss. Okay, so if you can't see the screen, it's Sean Strickland tweets, the UFC fans want me and Drickus to settle it. Drickus wants to settle it. We all know I fought in a dirty liberal country who effed me. Dana knows it. The UFC knows it. If it was anyone else on the roster, rematch would happen. Do the right thing, UFC. That's a fact. If everything else was exactly the same, but he didn't have the political standpoints that he have or do the crazy stuff outside of the cage, then yes, 100%, he is right that the rematch would happen. That said, he is as popular as he is because he is a reckless lunatic that is completely authentic and has no filter whatsoever. So it is a double-edged sword with how he's carried it in his career, you know? But again, I genuinely think at this point now, once you've won the belt, you are established, right? You don't have to go over the top to be popular anymore. Everyone knows who you are now, right? So I want to start actually talking about the being in a liberal city that effed him, because when I first thought about that, I definitely did not give a lot of credence to it at all, because what I was thinking when I analyzed is like, all right, well, the UFC is going to tell the judges to rig it against Sean Strickland. That's ridiculous. And that is ridiculous, right? Or some institutional thing is going to be like, rig it against Sean. No, I don't believe that. What I do believe is that I don't know the politics of the judges up there, right? And given where they live, there is a high probability that at least two of the judges are Trudeau people or whatever, like they're on the other side of Sean. Sean established himself as not just on the other side, like a calm kind of other sider. He establishes himself as like the worst case scenario to those people.
I want to ask,
Did you vote for Trudeau?
I'm not going to say.
And let me tell you something right now. If a man says he's not going to say, like if you ask him, motherfucker, did you vote for Biden? He's like, well, I'm not going to say. That's none of your business. He voted for fucking Biden.
Right? And that's why people love him. To that world, he is irredeemable. You know what I mean? And so if you think about that and you're a judge sitting at the table and you're like, oh man, that was a close round. And it's completely up to you. It's totally up to you who you say won. You know what I mean? Like the political thing absolutely could matter, because again, I definitely think that Sean won. Anyway, so that being the case, and Dana saying that he thought Sean won also, okay? So then you have to think about the situation is, so then why is there a number one contender fight between Hamzat and Whitaker? How is Sean Strickland not in the conversation, given that he is the most popular guy in the UFC, dude? Okay, that is a fact. Listen, Dana knows this. These guys know this. I know this because I do content. If you want to know how popular a fighter really is in terms of how big of a draw they are, ask me, ask Chael, ask Guru, ask anybody who's a content creator, because we'll tell you exactly who the draws are, because we do videos about them and they do, like, that's your census. If you're a channel that averages, anywhere 20 to 150, 200,000 views per video, that's enough people for you to know, like, I do a video about this guy, it's going to get 7,000 views. You know what I mean? Like, there are tons of fighters. If I do a video about them, it's going to do 1/3 of my lowest stuff, because I don't do videos about people unless I know they're going to perform. Strickland is at the upper tier. Strickland is as big of a draw as Conor McGregor in terms of doing videos about him. You know what I mean? So, like, given that I know that for sure, and I obviously know exactly how the UFC match makes, that's why I've always been so consistently correct when I predict what they're going to do, the only possibility is that he is being restricted from getting a title shot. Bottom line, that's the only answer. And I mean, listen, dude, you got a couple options for why. One is because of how outspoken he is politically, but it's also like what he's saying out loud. And the other is that he's reckless, dude. Like, he's his behavior is very unpredictable. It's like, and he also he says out loud into like an Instagram live, he's like, I think I'm a danger to society. Like that level of honesty is not good for the UFC to look at and be like, yeah, this is who we want to be a brand ambassador. I mean, he's one of the only people, and you got to think about this for real. Like, he's obviously one of the most extremely outspoken guys, who's like the most kind of live wire unpredictable, but he is like the only person who is as popular as he is that I am positive now the UFC is restricting access to title shot opportunities. Okay. Nate Diaz, they would do anything to give Nate Diaz a title. If this was Nate Diaz, who had the same exact situation as Sean with Dricus, 100% he's either getting the next one, or he's getting winner of Dricus and Izzy for 1,000% sure. And people love Nate kind of for the same reason as Sean. So Sean is in this different category that I've never seen anyone else in before. And again, like, if you want to come out and you want to talk politics and all that and be really authentic with it, that's great. And I think it's great just period. But if you want to not hurt yourself from getting title shots, you can't go on Joe Rogan's podcast and talk about shooting a guy in the head and say that you really want to murder someone. You know what I mean? Like that stuff that's too much. Like, it's too far, right? Now, I want people to reveal exactly what's in their mind, no matter what it is. I like reading people and getting a full read on them. So what I'm talking about right now is purely about maximizing your opportunities in the organization. And Sean is fucking himself. Straight up, dude. Straight up, dude. And, again, I realize that's why he's so popular. And I know for a fact there are going to be people that comment, they're like, no, this is bullshit. He should be able to say whatever he wants. And I'm like, okay, I'm not saying he shouldn't. Free speech for sure. But what I'm saying is, like, if you're interviewing for a job, like, let's say that you have an active, let's say in my situation, I have a YouTube channel and I am also in the technology business and I'm applying for a job at Amazon, like, if I could say whatever I want, I could come on here and be like, Amazon's the worst company ever. But that means Amazon doesn't have to hire me, right? Like, if they're like, okay, let's go check out his social media, and one of the first few videos is all Amazon sucks, and they watch it, I'm like, Amazon is a piece of shit company. Yeah, you have the freedom to say that, but they don't have to hire you. They're like, I'm not gonna hire this guy. The UFC is an employer. Does Dana look like he normally looks after a title fight with a crazy outcome like this? Like, look, he was not happy that Sean won this belt.
What did you think of, we'll start with Israel, right? What did you think of his performance? I think some people are saying he looked very flat early on. He looked like he sort of didn't deal with the pressure Sean was giving him very well. What did you think of Israel?
Israel looked like he was in slow motion. He looked like he couldn't get off. He looked like he was really stiff tonight. He looked very slow.
Do you think that could be, we always talk about his activity, but maybe there's something to be said that he might be overtrained at this point and maybe needs some time off? Or do you think it's just, hey, sometimes you have a bad night?
Only Israel knows what's going on. I'm very curious to see what he says at this press conference.
Yeah. See, like, and the reason that he said that again, if you guys don't remember, is Strickland got that title shot because Izzy talked UFC into it and guaranteed that he would win. And then he got the break speed off of him. Like, I'm telling you, like, Sean is a reckless, unpredictable, asset to the UFC. So, he's not going to be able to go box. He's under contract. That is what it is. But, like, again, I think what he needs to chop out of his repertoire is stop talking about killing people publicly, man. Like, for real. Like, stop saying that you want to kill someone if you could get away with it. Stop saying you want to kill someone in the octagon. So, I mean, that one is kind of what people say that, but I would stop saying that if I was Sean. Stop talking about, like, put a shotgun to a guy's head as if it's like a cool story. Like, you're talking about committing first-degree murder in that case, or maybe second degree. You know, like the story he told on Rogan was he destroyed somebody's apartment when he was partying, and then they came down with a gun and told him to leave because he's destroying their apartment, and he took the shotgun from the guy, put it at his head, and he's like, the only reason I didn't pull the trigger is because this girl dove in between me and the guy and begged for his life. And you're like, right. If you would have pulled the trigger, you'd be doing life in prison right now. Like, I feel like you should be very happy that didn't go that way, and then probably not tell this story on the biggest podcast in the world. You know, like in my opinion, that kind of stuff is not why he's popular. That's, you know, I was going to blow some guy's head off. That's not why he's popular. He's popular because he says what he means, but that doesn't mean you need to say everything, dude. You know, I would be very shocked to see if anybody was like, yeah, the reason I really love Sean is because, you know, he threatens to kill people on Twitter. You know, I just don't believe that is a thing. But anyway, so that's the kind of thing that I would chop out of my repertoire if I was Sean and I wanted to maximize my, you know, my opportunities. Okay. So on this though, the back and forth that he had with Portnoy, this is also a little bit bizarre to me, and I'll tell you what I mean. All right, so let me show you what happened back and forth between Strickland and Portnoy, and then we'll discuss.
Last night, Sean Strickland had words for Dave Portnoy. On X, Sean wrote, "My girl watches TikTok, sadly. She keeps showing me Miss Peaches, the Barstool Sports guy's dog. And I asked my girl, does this man have kids? No. Let me tell you all something. If you're a grown-ass, childless man, obsessed about a dog, you gotta rethink your life, rich or poor." He followed up with, "Okay, I went too far. I'm sorry. Your dogs are your kids. I know. As a man who loves his country, I just see the sickness that has infected us. The men before us built a nation, fought world wars, had pride, God. What do we have now? Boys with dog children."
Okay, so let me just stop right there. Okay, so first off, is Sean married? No. Does Sean have children? No. So what are we talking about? You're like, he went off like that on Portnoy because Portnoy loves his dog. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, dude, I love that Strickland is outspoken. I love that he's authentic. I feel as though when he says things online, he doesn't do the thing where he's like, am I criticizing someone for something that I am? And he does it so often, dude. You know what I mean? It's like, Ryan Garcia, you're rich and you got mental problems. Just grow up, you fucking pussy. And then like a week later, he's like, listen, man, I'm rich, I'm famous, I have everything I want, and I'm still, you know, really struggling with mental health. And I think you're like, dude, you just lit up Garcia for that a week ago. Exactly that. Like exactly that. Exactly that. You know what I mean? And like Dave Portnoy, that's your target. Like Dave Portnoy is an example of a grown man baby. What the fuck are you talking about? Dude, Dave Portnoy employs hundreds of people. He built a company and provides jobs to hundreds of Americans. He is an American success story. He made hundreds of millions of dollars, bought his company. He sold his company for like $300 million, and then bought the company back for $1, which he now owns again. Like, he is a terrible example for the point that you're trying to make. I agree with you about society and how women are not, you know, aspiring to get married. Men are not getting married. They're not having children. But Portnoy is a fucking horrendous example of any kind of negativity in society. He built a wildly successful company and employs tons of Americans. He is not the guy to go after because he has a fucking dog that he loves. Like, that's just stupid, dude. You know what I mean? I love Strickland, but I also will always tell people they're fucking stupid if they're being stupid. That shit's fucking stupid. Let's see what Portnoy said back, though.
Dave fired back with this video. He wrote, "Bad news for Sean Strickland. Miss Peaches didn't die this weekend like he was rooting for. Sucks for you, Sean. Dogs over humans." Michael Chiesa also had words for Sean. He wrote, "If you're a grown, childless man hating on someone for loving a dog, you got to rethink your life, rich or poor."
That's a fair criticism right there. But yeah, I mean, dude, Portnoy, if you're Dave Portnoy, I mean, listen, dude, this is the reality. I am a person who is the luckiest dude on earth. I'm married to a girl I love more than anything in the entire world. I do not believe there is a better match for me on planet Earth. I don't think there's a prettier girl on planet Earth. There's no one who could deal with my shit at all. And we've never had a fight in 17 fucking years. So like, people don't believe us. Like, people don't believe me about that. Like, when I was in Scottsdale this weekend, I said that to my buddies. They're like, that's impossible. I texted Gabrielle. I'm like, hey, how many fights have we been in 17 years? Like, real fights. She's like, none. And I was like, right. You know, I used to fight with all my girls before, and she fought with her dudes before. Never once. Like, she's a perfect match. But my opinion, if you don't find that, or at least something close to that, then why the fuck would you get married? Like, if I would have just gotten married to one of the chicks that I was dating before because, like, I thought I was supposed to get married, I'd be fucking miserable. Well, I would have gotten divorced, actually, almost certainly. So, like, you can't choose when you meet the girl. And if you're Dave Portnoy and you're just slaying box, just constantly girls throwing themselves at you, and you get to kind of get, like, the honeymoon phase, and then you move on, honeymoon phase, and you move on, or just throw, you know, in and out. Like, why the fuck would you... I don't know. I mean, I do agree that, like, you want to have society built around families, but Dave Portnoy, give me a fucking break, dude. Like, he can do whatever the hell he wants. And we're going to wrap up with this. The Biden administration's proclamation of Transgender Day of Visibility in 2024. I wanted to put this at the end so we can put a little bit of distance between the beginning of the video and anyone who might get to the back of this and decide they wanted to, you know, I don't know, take this wrong, you know? Because obviously we're just having a grown-up conversation about a thing like this. And I'm going to read this ridiculous proclamation to you, and we're going to discuss why it is A, absurd, B, misleading, and C, one of the most idiotic campaign decisions, like, of all time. You know, are you not capable of reading the room? Like, are these guys not capable of reading the room? They really believe that the way forward is to keep forcing this topic down everyone's throats. You're like, guys, I think the people have made pretty clear where the line in the sand is, and you guys have crossed it now. You know what I mean? It's like Planet Fitness. Wait, so there was a man exposing himself to a bunch of girls in the locker room, and then the woman who reported it, she gets her, you know, her membership taken away. Like, how many locations are there of Planet Fitness? Like 1 billion, you know what I mean? And that happened at one gym, and Planet Fitness is finished. Everyone's leaving. Everyone's, you know, canceling their memberships. You know what I mean? And it's like, and Bud Light, you know, they did one ad with Dylan Mulvaney, and everyone's like, nope, that's enough. Target does the, you know, tuck swimsuits. They did one design, which means they had no intentions of actually selling a bunch of them. Dunzo. They end up hiding them in the back. All these companies are terrified of even Pride Week now. Dude, everyone is running scared. You pushed way too hard. Like, you went way too hard. And now you're in the center of the biggest backlash you could possibly imagine. And this is the decision that you make. Transgender Day of Visibility falls on Easter Sunday. Like, on Easter Sunday. And you're like, you know what? Instead of maybe taking a break on Transgender Day of Visibility, we could just accidentally forget and not put something out. You go for it. And the most inevitable result is this, you know? So, this is the thing, though. The Biden administration has absolutely stocked their you know, staff with people who would never accept you forgetting about this. You know, like, there is this very small group of people who are activists, and somehow they have infiltrated. That's why, you know, Sean calls them an infection. They've infiltrated these places, and they're like, no, we need to do this. You know, we don't give a shit that it's the most important Christian holiday. We're going to make this about us. Transgender Day of Visibility. And you know what I think about when I think trans in America is, I'm like, they're just not visible enough, you know? Like, there's just not enough visibility. I think that's what's important. And the idea that they are, I mean, let me just read some of this to you. It's just the stupidest thing ever. On the Transgender Day of Visibility, we honor the extraordinary courage and contributions of transgender Americans and reaffirm our nation's commitment to forming a more perfect union where all people are created equal and treated equally throughout their lives. Oh, treated equally. That's what you guys think now? Like, everyone's treated equally? That's an honest statement. That's something you guys just said? Treated equally. Because that's definitely what you guys stand for now. I'm proud that my administration has stood for justice from the start, working to ensure the LGBTQI+ community can live openly and safely with dignity and respect. I am proud to have appointed transgender leaders. Hey, how'd that work out, dude? How'd that work out? Pretty sure you appointed a transgender leader to the nuclear science thing, and they turned out to be a freak who steals women's luggage from the airport. Remember that? You know, like shaved head with a mustache in dresses. Remember that freak? And yeah, you know. By the way, when I call him a freak, I just mean like person who steals women's luggage is a freak. You know, I'm definitely not referring to a person who would identify as a girl and have a mustache, because why? You know, you have a conversation with a person like that, you're all, you know what I think? Let's appoint that person to a really high, important government station. It's a fucking joke, dude. Anyway, and I have ended the ban on transgender Americans serving openly in our military. You know what's funny about that? Do you know who was responsible for the largest data leak in the history of America? Bradley Manning. And you know what Bradley Manning was suffering from? Gender dysphoria. You know, now Bradley Manning is like something else. That's his dead name or whatever. He's a girl now. So, you know, I mean, if you were going to look for reasons that maybe, you know, I don't know. I'm proud to have signed historic executive orders that strengthen civil rights protections in housing, employment, health care, education, the justice system, and more. I am proud to have signed the Respect for Marriage Act into law, ensuring every American can marry the person they love. Okay, no one cares about that. Transgender Americans are part of the fabric of our nation. Schizophrenic Americans are part of the fabric of our nation. You know, bipolar Americans are part of the fabric of our nation. It's like, it's just such an absolutely ludicrous. It's like, you know, hey, Americans with black hair are part of the fabric of our nation. It's just like, shut up, man. Whether serving their communities or in the military, raising families chest feeding, I guess, or running businesses, they help America thrive. They deserve and are entitled to the same rights and freedoms as every other American, including the most fundamental freedom to be their true selves. Okay. Right. No one disagrees with that. But extremists are proposing hundreds of hateful laws that target and terrify transgender kids and their families, silencing teachers, banning books, and even threatening parents, doctors, and nurses with prison for helping parents get care for their children. For their children. Extremists. Hey, you know what we would prefer is if they don't put kids on puberty blockers, since the statistics are obviously very clear. If someone goes through puberty, they stop feeling like they are trans in 92% of cases or something like that. But you're going to put all of them on puberty blockers and ensure they don't go through puberty, and then transition them and mutilate their body, you know, and all that. And then but extremists are like, maybe don't sterilize the children and then make them permanent patients of the pharmaceutical companies. I can't imagine why they're, you know, why anyone would want this to be the case. Big pharma. Extremist, dude. That is absolutely insane. Extremist, dude. Anyway, these bills attack our most basic American values: the freedom to be yourself, the freedom to make your own health. This is written by someone like, you think Joe Biden could string this many words together? This is just written by one of these trans activists that's in his you know, cabinet. Or you know, and how about the Biden staffer that got pounded out by a dude in one of the congressional hearing offices, filmed it, put it on social media with the caption, got a nice German sausage with a Jaeger shot on my back today in the congressional office, and he didn't get prosecuted. Can you fucking imagine? Can you imagine if a Trump staffer did that to a girl, took some chick into one of those congressional, you know, offices and pounded her in the top shelf, you know, was like, ooh, we're going in the 2-hole this time. And he's like, yeah, daddy gave this bitch a hard German sausage and puts a Jaeger bomb all over her back. Dude, they would be in fucking jail for sure. And this guy, they're all, well, he's, you know, he's queer. So, you know, just no reason to prosecute. Anyway, So it is no surprise that bullying and discrimination that transgender Americans face is worsening our nation's mental health crisis. You want to know why? Is because you guys show them such absurd favoritism that it pisses people off, leading to half of transgender youth to consider suicide in the past year. Oh, and then so what are the statistics on after they transition? Is that changing? No, it's not. At the same time, an epidemic of violence against transgender women and girls, especially women and girls of color, continues to take too many lives, especially women and girls of color. That is this. Anyone who quotes this statistic, is either stupid or dishonest, or at least ignorant or dishonest. Because where those stats are coming from is coming from the ghetto, where almost every single one of these cases is a person with a violent criminal record. You're talking about like drug dealers, prostitutes, okay, like that live in the most violent world, and they're not being killed because they're trans. They're being killed because they are part of a systemic problem in those communities. But like people are just extra transphobic in the black community. Isn't the black community where like the majority of the murders are happening? They're all, you're like, you don't think it's more about the black community and people getting killed than the fact that they're trans? They're all, what? You're like, you don't think you're just conveniently, pulling that stat so that you can, paint this picture of this this trans hate that, only exists, like literally the only hate that trans people get is not for individual trans people, it's for you institutional people that are doing whatever this thing is that you're doing. And the fact that you want to do it to kids, and the suicide thing. No one should have to be brave. Oh yeah, all these attacks are un-American and must end. Okay, well they're not attacks on trans. If it was an actual transphobic attack, you would hear about every single one of them. They're not. Okay. You have to fabricate trans attacks. Oh my God, this person got killed in the bathroom because they're trans. They weren't trans, number one. And they also didn't get killed in the bathroom. You're just making shit up. No one should have to be brave to be themselves. That's probably enough, dude. This is just like, shut up. Anyway, that's what I got.